Are video games getting worse, or am I just getting older? It's a topic I see frequently discussed in long-form video essays such as this. It seems a lot of people are less happy with the bigger, longer, and more expensive new releases of days present and want to know, why? Have game devs lost their way? Or do I just have clinical depression? Well, as your friendly neighborhood gaming psychiatrist, I'll tell you that if the newest Modern Warfare game felt like your 13th reason why, I might suggest a BetterHelp subscription. But for everyone else who's feeling a bit more emotionally stable and still isn't happy with the latest AAA releases, I might recommend a strong RX refill of a little game called Uncharted 2 Among Thieves. Here's why. Uncharted 2 was released to overwhelming critical praise in October of 2009. It was a massive leap up from its predecessor and Naughty Dog's biggest and most mainstream title to date. During the flood of third and first person shooters that was the late 2000s, Uncharted stuck out at the time not for its Gears of War influenced gameplay, but for its blockbuster set piece moments, cutting edge visual presentation, and witty character dialogue. Because of this, Uncharted 2 was looked at as a serious step towards a certain cinematic actualization for gaming as a medium. Looking back on the game now, a lot of what made its presentation special is still intact. It may not be the graphical top dog that it once was, but there's no denying its grin-inducing innuendos and decades-durable one-liners.
Just need a diversion. You give me 5 minutes in that tent, that's all it'll take.
Really? 5 minutes? Well, that's great. I won't even have to get my top off.
Chloe, I was thinking more like an explosion.
The thing that preserves Uncharted 2 as a crown jewel in Naughty Dog's catalog, however, is its nearly perfect balance of one part video game and the other part movie. Uncharted 2 represents a halfway point between Naughty Dog's iconic retro platformer Crash Bandicoot and their newer, more novel-like Last of Us Part 2. This halfway point is not only an observable chronological fact, it's a deeply felt synthesis of design, observable in every last helix of Uncharted 2's DNA. Uncharted 2 is the fun, fleshed-out writing of an Indiana Jones, and the engaging, varied, and well-paced gameplay of a BioShock or Gears of War. Uncharted 2 is also gleefully lacking in the morose, Oscar bait-style dark drama that's begun to characterize so many of the industry's narrative heavyweights. And when combined with how precisely it executes on itself, it's easy to see, in retrospect, just why this game was, is, and will continue to be so special. When you first boot Uncharted 2 back up, after 2 decades of improvements to Naughty Dog's engine, you'll notice a couple sags and wrinkles where it no longer impresses on the technical front. The most immediate blemish is the facial animation. Characters look jagged and almost alien-like, even compared to 2011's Drake's Deception. This can take some getting used to, especially when juxtaposed against the best-in-class animations of Last of Us Part 2 and Uncharted 4. The second retroactively unimpressive feature of Among Thieves is actually the audio. The quality of the music, gunfire, and ambience is passable enough, but the dialogue sounds lossy, overly compressed, and paper-thin. Jumping from the 3D audio-enabled Legacy of Thieves collection on PS5 to the Nathan Drake collection on PS4, I was under the impression that they ran out of budget and had to record Nolan North on Amy Hennig's toaster or perhaps a potato from the local farmer's market. After 14 years, Uncharted 2 hit me with the sharp part of its audio-visual hammer upon first impression. After delving a bit deeper, however, the timeless nature of its artistic integrity began to show itself. One thing that Naughty Dog has always excelled at is telling a story through a color palette, and that talent is on full display here in Among Thieves. The lush, deep green jungles of Borneo play host to the early excitement of Nate, Chloe, and Sully as they plan to screw over the monochromatically evil Lazarevich. The gray and blue snow of the Himalayan mountains reflect Drake's burnout and disappointment towards the middle of the story. Chloe, dressed in a skimpy, almost glowingly red crop top, mimics Nate's fiery passion and carefree attitude, until she turns her back on him and dons a black leather jacket, more similar to the militaristic gradient of our antagonists. Our leading ladies, whom Nate is embroiled in a love triangle with, mostly wear bright colors, oranges and red. The enemy team adheres to a spectrum of black and white. The denser and darker the armor, the more difficult the foe. Yellow means this is grabbable, or go here. And the clothing of Nate, along with his accompanying NPCs, always complements their surrounding environment. Uncharted 2's tech is over a decade old, but its visually compelling artistic choices remain timeless. Another place where Uncharted 2 holds onto its immersion is its stunning score. Greg Edmondson, who scored all 3 of the first games, provides depth, urgency, and memorability in a way only a truly great score can. The iconic main theme sounds a lot fuller here, but that's not all. Dark, dramatic brass punctuates the best of Among Thieves set pieces, while tribal flutes and imposing drum beats flesh out the game's more mysterious tones. Considering that Uncharted 3 takes on a more unique Middle Eastern voice in its score, and Uncharted 4 adds a plethora of new character themes to play with, Uncharted 2 feels like the true baseline for the series in terms of music. It's plenty dynamic, but Uncharted 2's score packs itself neatly under one cohesive umbrella, never venturing beyond the necessary cinematic bombast or its own established canon. It's a video game score that feels like it could have been used for an action movie, and any action movie would be damn lucky to have it. The score on its own is special, but when layered with the game's incredible characters and narrative moments, it's downright electric.
Out of his misery!
On the topic of characters and narrative moments, that's exactly where Uncharted earned its reputation during its emergence in the late 2000s. In retrospect, however, the narrative of Uncharted 2 isn't exactly noteworthy. Through a certain lens, it's even downright absurd. It's not the story on paper, but rather the game's perfectionistic approach to fun that makes its writing, characters, and story come to life. Almost every cutscene has at least one chuckle-worthy line from one beloved character or another.
Well, something else will come along. Just gotta have faith.
Yeah. That and a quarter will get you 25 cents.
And the interpersonal on-screen relationships find footing on account of how sheerly endearing they are to watch play out. This game's dialogue is strong and charming. It's also the buoyant blend of cinematic frivolity and video game violence that makes Nathan Drake something of a contradiction. In one scene, he's making "your mom" jokes about an ancient statue.
There you go. Statue of your mom.
In the following gameplay, he's asking a rooftop of freshly eviscerated dead bodies how'd that feel.
How does that taste? How's that feel?
In fact, both Chloe Frazer and Nathan Drake are written as more crass, sexually charged, and verbally cutting here. Their characterization in Among Thieves feels more reminiscent of something like The Hangover than the recent Last of Us or Uncharted games.
Seems like I am always saving your ass.
Well, it is an ass worth saving.
The jovial rudeness and reckless abandon on display here lets Among Thieves focus more on being entertaining than anything else. Later Naughty Dog games would go on to weave intricate thematic tapestries designed to push players to their limits, upset them, or make them think. Uncharted 2, by contrast, bends over backwards to charm and endear. Some of its more tender moments may feel improperly punctuated by Drake's nonchalant approach to violence, but that's a small price to pay considering just how fun this writing really is.
I'm sorry, am I sensing some history here?
Oh, Elena Fisher. Last year's model.
That's cute.
If one were to make the argument Naughty Dog oversteered in later games while matching the tone of the story to the level of violence occurring during gameplay, the unapologetic enjoyability of Uncharted 2 should be evidence A, B, and C. The writing in Uncharted 2 is iconic, and I knew that from the trailers and the demo I played before I even bought the game in late 2009. What I had forgotten about is just how unrelenting and enjoyable Among Thieves' game design actually is. Detractors from the series will claim that Naughty Dog titles are top-heavy on the narrative front, and that they use undercooked, mediocre third-person shooter combat to ferry the player between cutscenes. Nowhere is this further from the truth than in Uncharted 2. I replayed the game all the way through on its crushing difficulty setting. It was almost a shock to the senses just how good Uncharted 2 still feels after 14 years. Nate moves fast in this game. There's very little slow walking or triangle pressing going on here, especially compared to Uncharted 4. In fact, Uncharted 2 is paced a bit more like Doom or a Halo title than anything Naughty Dog has done recently. After an iconic intro involving a train you may have heard of and a couple of stealth tutorial flashbacks, Nate is thrust into a gauntlet of shootouts at near breakneck pace. I completed the game in just over 8 hours on crushing, and was seldom stopped for the occasional puzzle or exploration scene. A mid-game section that saw Nathan Drake exploring a cave with a Tibetan villager named Tenzin stuck out as the only substantive break in the action. That's okay, because Among Thieves' shooter game mechanics run like a well-oiled machine for most of its runtime. All the guns feel excellent to aim and shoot, the cover mechanic is snappy, and the stealth and melee systems are just as out of the way and optional as they are serviceable. The weapon variety is a standout on account of its symbiotic relationship with the enemy variety. This relationship is the engaging X factor that makes shootouts feel dynamic and unpredictable, especially on harder difficulties. Snipers hang back and try to pick off the player with laser targeting. Shotgun-wielding adversaries steadily approach from the flanks, while heavily armored enemies stride confidently towards the player. Shotguns allow you to blind fire from cover to great effect, while snipers and FAL assault rifles grant more precision. Breakable cover, rogue grenades, and low ammo counts for powerful weapons underscore each encounter with urgency and tension. Nate is forced to constantly pick up new weapon types, and new types of enemies are constantly in play, so you never know exactly what's coming next and how it'll force you to think on your feet. Unless, of course, you do know what's coming next because you've replayed the section several times. Towards the end of Uncharted 2, the lack of checkpoints, combined with the steadily increasing enemy count per area, did punctuate my general enjoyment of the game with some tedium and frustration. Some of the sections don't feel properly scaled to the crushing difficulty at all, such as sections where Nate and Sully have to outrun gunfire at the end of Borneo, or when Nate and Tenzin have to run from a tank in Nepal. The very last shootout, which occurred on a lengthy bridge right before the boss fight, felt particularly unoptimized, as enemies I couldn't see cut me down with laser-like precision, and I even had trouble collecting enough ammo for the encounter. The end of the game consists of a pretty heavy dose of shootout, so if you get snagged on any one of them, the rest are bound to be experienced through the fog of burnout. Ending aside, the crushing difficulty setting was perfect for my playthrough. The average shootout felt tense, engaging, and gratifying. For every time I failed and had to restart a checkpoint, there were at least 2 or 3 where I survived by the skin of my teeth. Uncharted 2 feels like a heartier helping of action than more recent titles in the series, and it's that very gaminess that helped make my return to the title as engaging as it was. Uncharted 4 feels like an exploration-based narrative game accented by gunplay and the occasional set piece. Uncharted 2 is a purebred shooter through and through, just one with notably great writing and some technically astounding set pieces as the cherry on top. A decade ago, Uncharted 2 was the favorite out of a lineup of third-person shooters because of its characters and presentation. After a decade of developers, including Naughty Dog, parroting its cinematic qualities, Uncharted 2 finds new appeal by virtue of having been part of that lineup in the first place. Among Thieves is a strongly written game, but these days, a strongly written game in a quarter will get you 25 cents. What makes Uncharted 2 still stand out is how that writing services a sense of fun, and how that sense of fun accentuates its still serviceable third-person shooter combat. If you're sick and tired of the modern AAA canon, 30-hour video game campaigns, or indie darling journeying its way into the gameplay of every game with a writing staff, then put on your Sherpa, imply your Tibetan ritual daggers and step back into the gates of Shambhala. I promise it'll be worth it.
Yeah, hello.